In 2002, there was no Paris Agreement. There was little in the way of sustainable investing, few protocols for measuring businesses' social and environmental impacts, and no Greta Thunberg. That year, I founded Corporate Knights with Paul Fengler and Peter DePleros. In our first editor's note, we wrote that corporations don't exist in a vacuum. We as citizens are their lifeblood. We coined the term clean capitalism. We believed that corporations could be incubators for human progress and wealth creation, envisioning an economic system that incorporates the full social, economic, and ecological costs and benefits of our marketplace actions. We formed a committee to design the first annual ranking of Canada's most sustainable businesses, called the Best 50 Corporate Citizens. This year marks our 20th edition of the Best 50. A lot's happened in sustainability since we started, so let's rewind.
The new millennium kicked off with the United Nations Millennium Development Goals, which aimed to cut extreme poverty in half by 2050. In 2001, the UN Global Compact was founded based on 10 principles designed to harness the power of business as a force for good. 2 years later, 70,000 people died in a record heat waves across Europe, where temperatures soared to high 30s and alpine glaciers shrank by 10%. In 2005, the Kyoto Protocol came into force. The United Nations launched 6 aspirational principles for responsible investment. Under the auspices of a new body, the UN Principles for Responsible Investment. With the decade more than half over, the Stern Review published The Economics of Climate Change, highlighting the economic logic for swift and bold international response to the climate crisis. In 2007, Al Gore's film An Inconvenient Truth brought climate science to the masses and won an Oscar for Best Documentary. When U.S. financial markets collapsed, causing the biggest global recession since the Great Depression, which put the financial sector under a microscope, and environmental considerations on the back burner. Closing the decade, UN Secretary Ban Ki-moon visited the polar ice rim to observe the impact of climate change on icebergs and glaciers. He reported the loss of glaciers at 150 billion tons per year. If there was any doubt about the hazards of fossil fuels, the 2010 explosion of the Deepwater Horizon oil rig was a wake-up call. Over 200 million gallons of oil spilled into the Gulf of Mexico, devastating coastal environment and killing 11 people. In 2011, Occupy Wall Street converged into Lower Manhattan, sparking a global movement to protest the financial sector. Then, another sign of the mounting climate crisis. In Hawaii, daily average atmospheric carbon dioxide was recorded, for the first time in 55 years of measuring, at over 400 parts per million. The safe level, according to scientists, is 350 parts per million. Despite the bad news, clean capitalism continued gaining momentum. The United Nations launched the Sustainable Development Goals, and the Paris Climate Agreement set a global goal of limiting warming to below 2 degrees Celsius. In 2019, Canadians told pollsters that climate change was one of the top 3 most important issues in determining how they would vote in the federal election. The pandemic triggered another recession in 2020, and this time sustainability issues weren't relegated to the back burner. Around the world, global businesses doubled down on green growth, and superpowers tabled historic budgets for a green recovery, including more than €500 billion to decarbonize Europe by 2050, and a $2 trillion US plan that aims to get carbon out of the electricity sector by 2035.
As world leaders make bold commitments to do better, we know that Canada has to step up too. From our first issue of Corporate Knights, we've been grading Canada's largest corporations, raising flags, and illuminating solutions. They've come a long way since 2002, and capitalism is looking cleaner with each year. To make the Best 50, a company is rated using 24 key performance indicators, like how much money is earned from planet-friendly activities, how diverse is the company leadership, how much taxes does the company pay. By focusing on the things that matter, we show that companies can do well while doing good. We'd like you to meet them. Corporate Knights proudly presents the 2021 Best 50 Corporate Citizens in Canada and the Top 10 International Corporate Citizens. The pandemic has brought many lessons home, emphasizing that we may all be in the same storm, but we are not all in the same boat. To fix this, we need to join the clean economy and the fair economy at the hip, in a way that unleashes the power of business as a force for good. How do we get there? While making good on Canada's commitment to achieve net zero emissions by 2050? By closing the gap between saying and doing, by banning the really harmful stuff and pouring money into the good stuff, by combining institutions and science into an era of action, by locking in change. To crystallize this era of action, we urge all Best 50 companies to sign and honor bold climate commitments. In 2002, we wrote, "We live in a world that is closing the gap between action and meaning." Now that sustainable solutions are growing faster than problems, the economic scales have tipped in our favor. With the combined actions of corporate citizens and everyday citizens, we can close the gap for good.